How do you combat feelings of not being worthy, or feelings that feeling guilty that you didn't do something right, or maybe you got at work and then your supervisor talked to you and said like, "Oh, here you're doing a good job of here, but this is what you need to change, and it's not working." Or and in your heart you feel embarrassed, or you feel bad, or you feel like you didn't do enough, or maybe a coworker or a friend or another person in your life reacted to what you said, not the way you expected, and maybe they assumed that you said something, but you meant something totally different. Like, you just didn't mean what they understood. And then you get anxious, you get upset, you get mad, you can even sometimes reply back. And then it gets this situation out of control. And for me, what it worked, it was like and trying to understand the angle of where this person comes from. So each time I'm getting something like a result that I don't like, instead of starting to accuse myself or feel guilty, I'm not saying I'm not feeling guilty, or maybe I don't accuse myself, but I'm saying that I trained myself to learn how to learn from that situation. So I'm thinking, like, for example, I was at work and they said to me, "Good job, you're doing so good, and this, but here is the problem. And we would like you to change, or we would like this to be different." And then immediately in my head, it can be like, "I'm not doing anything bad. Like, that's not even." Sometimes there's a situation where it's like, you're like, just really, like, is that like, I don't know, really a matter, but to people you work with might be very important, might be triggering, whatever. And for me, what I learned from these situations is that instead of staying and beating myself up for what happened at work, why did they say that to me, or why at the party someone made that comment, or why did I say this but people understood it differently, I decided to learn from the situation. And that what I mean by that, I stay and I actually think about the situation. I think of the words I was told, and I think how uh, what I did influenced other people, how did it result as for me, and how do I change it? Like, what do I learn from that situation? So instead of criticizing the people that talked to me and said to me things, or instead of beating myself up for not performing enough, I try to learn a lesson. So when I learn the lesson, I try to apply it to myself. So in the future, I don't have that type of reaction or that type of situation. So this week I was at work and I was doing something, and then there was like about 2 seconds of uncontrolled behavior on the part of other person. So the other coworker who was there got very frustrated, and then the other coworker got frustrated, and they told to another person, and the other person came back to our workplace and was like so like frustrated. You frustrated everyone because this is what you did and it was on you, and they even said I was doing nothing. So when I at first I heard that, I was like, what? Like, all of us work in this environment, you know that in this job you cannot be just doing nothing. And instead of thinking that way, I was thinking, what happened? So I know the other person was frustrated with the situation because they couldn't control it, and even the slightest 1 second that didn't matter to me really triggered them off. So I was thinking for myself, and I decided that instead of being upset and mad at that person or all the people who are saying, I know they didn't mean it in a bad way because we were all trying to do the same job, but I learned for myself that I need to look at how they look, how they are triggered so hard, how is their frustration triggered in like 2 seconds. And I don't want to be that person who can be triggered so fast. So I looked at their situation. I know that what the other person was trying to do, it took them a long time. And when they see that they do something for a long time and it's not working, and then the slightest thing that might not even be related to what didn't work just sets them up. So I learned from that situation that I need to be more careful towards my even the slightest thing that I might not do right. And I learned that my job doesn't really, or the quality of the work I'm doing doesn't really depend on some people being frustrated with 1 or 2 seconds of me doing something wrong. So instead of beating myself up and saying that, oh my God, I'm not worth of this job, I'm doing so bad, look what happened, everyone, blah, 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 I decided to make a list of how I'm doing my job, what happened exactly in that moment, and how can I fix it? How can I change it so it doesn't happen again? And the reason for that thinking is that it helps me grow, helps me become better at my job, and it also helps me to keep good relationships with people at work instead of being mad or thinking, oh my God, who do they think they are? Do they think they are doing a better job than me? I'm thinking, how can I use that information to build myself in a better position towards myself and towards my job? And then for this type of days, they actually, can have a toll on you because what I'm doing at my job, it's very emotionally involved, very hard, and you have to keep really, really calm and patient. And by the end of my shift, I feel like, tense. I have to relax. And when you hear a feedback like that, that in my eyes was exaggerated, but from their point of view was probably a way to let their feelings go out because they cannot let the feelings go when they are frustrated with their job. Otherwise, they'll lose their job. So I was like a goat escape. And when you realize that, you progress, you know. And then I have a bucket list of what to do when I have this type of situations, so I don't um, think too much about the feelings, the negative feelings that it gave me. Like when someone tells you that you frustrated someone and you were just sitting, not doing your job, it makes you feel like, what? Like it makes you maybe a little bit angry and upset. So I don't want to keep on those thoughts because I'm working with these people for, will be working for another year or maybe longer or even for a day. I don't want to have a negative relationship with anyone, no person, So I'm trying from every relationship to have a positive relation and to see what I can learn from situation, even though that I might not like what's happening, but I can learn something from that. I can expand myself. So when I come at home, I have a bucket list. What I do, I listen to relaxing music. I have a cup of coffee, or maybe a snack, something healthy, and then I read some type of books. I have a different books on different themes, and maybe I can go online. I set myself a goal to learn something that it's totally unrelated to what I'm interested in. So instead of, for example, putting music that will make me more upset, or like, I don't know, these songs that say that I'm the one and nobody can tell me anything and all that, instead of creating that stress for myself, what I'm doing is actually sitting down and I can Google how crickets can be a good protein for athletes, or how does the motor works in the regular car like a Ford or a Chevy or something, and how does it work in a Tesla or a Prius that it's like fully on batteries or something. So that's something that doesn't interest me. Like I really don't care how those cars work. My point is to get from my house to my job and to my whatever spaces I need to go, not necessarily to know how their motor works or what's working or not working. But by doing that, my brain is set to look into something totally different from what I'm regularly looking at. And it takes the power from my emotions that are present to something that it's not present, like something that doesn't interest me, but I give it focus so I can learn. And you never know how in the future you may need to know how crickets can be a good source of protein, or which crickets are a good source of protein. I don't know, you see what I'm saying is that when you feel any type of emotions or any type of stressful situation, the best thing is to acknowledge that you do have those feelings and to understand that you're frustrated, but then direct all your power and your attention to something totally different. So don't stay stuck in those feelings. And time shows that there are situations that we were mad or sad or angry in the past. But right now, when we think about those moments, we understand that it was silly, or maybe it wasn't worth so many thoughts or nights of our thinking about the problem. So, in all the stressful situation, I always have a bucket list of what I want to do, and I start with hydration, a good meal or snack, and then I start to distract my mind with total different things. It can be meditation, it can be music, calm music, not necessarily calm, but not something that doesn't invoke more hatred or more like self-absorption or ego. And then I do Google random stuff that it's not in my in my view, and I can spend, sometimes I can spend like an hour on that, or sometimes I can spend 15 minutes, and then my thoughts are totally in another direction, and the situation doesn't feel so um, pumped and so stressful. I hope it helped. If you have any tips, please feel free to let me know. If you like my video, you can subscribe, like, and share, or you can just watch it. It doesn't really matter. It's more like, no, actually matters. It makes me happy, but